Hello everyone, and welcome back to the MOPO on the Beach podcast, episode 3?
Yes, indeed.
Episode 3, yeah. We're only 3 in. I'm losing my wits. So this month, we read Tim Kreiders' We Learn Nothing, which is a series of essays essentially on his view on life and a lot of different weird things that we experience and his way of trying to understand these things and to bring more clarity to our lives.
So in summary, I learned absolutely nothing from this book.
No, it was already perfect in wisdom.
That was the obvious, pun to make from this one, but no.
But just before we started, you were saying how he's been through some crazy stories.
Yeah, he has. There's a lot of quite interesting stories that he's gone through, some crazy friends, whether or not it's to do with peak oil and running away to some random place, I think in Wisconsin,
or just really probably mentally unstable, well-intentioned people who are just lying through their teeth. Then again, I've experienced big, serious liars in my life, sociopathic liars.
But as in, it's almost like the thing about Skelly is that this character that lies a lot and hides his life. The thing about him is that we can still feel sorry for him, because it's like he's hiding all of these things that he doesn't want anyone to know about because he's so embarrassed about them. So it's not like he's just lying to just lie. It's just he's so embarrassed. He wants, but they eventually uncover some of the crazy things he was living through, and you're just like, I can't believe this guy was just suffering in silence.
Why would you not?
He's got friends, So,
like the liars that I've met have always been just bigging themselves up. They've always just tried to amplify who they are. But I guess it's always coming from a place of confusion and inadequacy and the need to be accepted, perhaps.
I think him in particular, I think he just doesn't want to burden anyone with it. It's like he doesn't see how sharing his sort of troubles and his worries are going to actually be helped, by telling his friends.
Yeah.
And he's just resigned to it. I mean, I thought Tim Kreiders was a bit of a pessimist, but then, I feel like his friend, he basically had just given up on life, but in certain aspects, like his home, sort of a bit of a pigsty.
Ooh. What do you mean, sorry?
He settled. He just accepted that he was always going to be broke. He was always going to his house. He didn't have electricity on for years. He didn't have a water connection for years. Moving from place to place.
It's but I think one really interesting thing from this chapter was quite early on, where he talks about the soul toupee.
Oh my God, yeah, that was really interesting.
Okay,
what page is that?
That's 39. So let me read out the context. Years ago, a friend of mine and I used to frequent a market in Baltimore where we would eat oysters and drink very large beers from 32-ounce styrofoam cups. One of the regulars there had the worst toupee in the world, a comical little wig taped in place on the top of his head. Looking at this man and drinking our VLBs, we developed the concept of a soul toupee. Each of us has a soul toupee, and the soul toupee is the thing about ourselves that we are most deeply embarrassed by. I like to think that we have cunningly concealed from the world, but which is in fact pitifully obvious to everybody who knows us. Contemplating one's own soul toupee is not an exercise for the faint-hearted. So I think that's hugely interesting. So if you talk about Skelly and how he was choosing to avoid these things in life and everyone else found it so obvious there was something wrong, do we have a similar sort of thing on a perhaps lesser magnitude, but it's still something significant?
I think we definitely do. I mean, I find it's funny that we both immediately I highlighted this one, and it just kind of struck me. It's I imagine there are some things that you think you're hiding, or you think like you got everyone fooled and everyone is just like, this guy's a clown.
Yeah.
Because it is interesting, like we only know of, like we can never perceive ourselves really.
Yeah.
We only know through other people's perceptions, or even just seeing ourselves, we can only see our reflections or pictures.
Yeah.
So
or even if it's our own like flaws, our logic to rationalize the flaw might be totally wrong, totally flawed, but we get focused on that logic. That's why I'm being an idiot, or that's why I'm being like X, Y, Z. And it's this kind of blindness that we have to our own selves that is actually, it's fascinating. It's like it'd be such a good thing to bring to the forefront, like bring to light, so that we can all address it.
I was thinking this actually today. I was thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to see yourself from someone else's eyes?
That'd be like, really interesting.
You would just, all of a sudden, you'd be like, who is this person?
I'm such a dickhead.
you would just be like, who is that person? Like, because I think you would be surprised at how you look as well. Because
I think so.
You would just be like, that's the first time you would actually get a full.
Yeah. I find looking at pictures of myself from many years ago, I find that quite surreal. Because I think the way I perceive myself back then was different to how I perceive myself now. So
you're changing you're using that knowledge to change what you think of perceive yourself in the past.
Kind of. Okay, look, I'll be very upfront. When I look at pictures of myself in the past, I think, quite a handsome dude, like not so bad looking, right? But if I I think at the time I wouldn't have thought that of myself. I would have thought myself to be lesser than I consider now. Maybe I'm just getting old and I'm starting to wither and seeing my former younger.
Damn. Look at this young buck, outrageously handsome.
No, but seriously, it's interesting that our own perceptions of ourselves, I think the way we view ourselves is going to be so subjective. The way you view anything is going to be so subjective. And the way you view yourself is going to be the most contorted, twisted, overcomplicated. I was going to say complified, but that's not a word. I guess my thought is, this is always my thought, like, what do we do next? How do we take this knowledge and make our lives better based on knowing this?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think it's like, and this is the hardest thing, you have to be honest with yourself. Like, you have to try and figure out what your soul to pay is and what it is, what your shortcomings are, and that, you don't have to put a spin on it. Like, you don't have to pitch yourself to you, right?
Yeah.
You can pitch yourself to other people, in which case you put like a good spin on whatever, your experiences, all that. But you never need to pitch yourself to you. You need to, maybe you can pitch what you want to become.
Yeah.
But then that means you have to establish what your level is at that moment. And you can't do that without being honest and saying, actually, let's not put a spin. Let's just be completely frank.
Yeah. I think, I totally agree. I think there's one topic that I find quite important, which is brutal introspective honesty. I think that for me is just, I think a principle that any group or society would need every individual to be doing to function well and to grow. But I think one thing that is lacking from that is that a lot of your own things, your own problems, or your own trauma or childhood stuff, you don't even know it's there. Your memory has blocked it, or your personality is built based on a series of experiences that you may not even understand how they were formed in the first place. So we have a lack of understanding of ourselves in the first place. It's not even about, just be honest. It's about, you need to go dig deep into yourself to figure out what's in there, what's down there. That's a much harder thing to do.
I think that is definitely, people don't even like to dig 1 or 2 meters
Yeah.
below the surface, let alone go and like,
man.
I
just can't relate to these kind of. I find it hard to relate to these people. If you're not willing to go that deep and like look at your flaws and look at how we're being silly, I lose that. I lose the click often.
Often, yeah.
That's why we need alcohol, Mo. Alcohol fixes everything, mate. It fuses us. But I think that is. But what was our point? I forgot it already.
Salt toupees and how we can use that to better ourselves.
Yeah. There was. Oh, I was gonna do a nice segue into another piece, another bit. But I've just forgotten it. Like. Sunday, fatigued, podcasting. It's gonna be a slow one, man. Sorry, everyone. If you are the one person who listens, we might get like 2 people listening this time. If you're one of the 2 people, sorry. We're both very tired. Yeah, so in the first one, I think it's the second one, the creature walks among us. Do you remember this one? It's basically about. It's about how we live our lives in a normal state, but deep down we are bubbling this kind of passion that's there, and like often it erupts. So, like for example, he says, "I love it when passion rips open that dull 9-to-5 facade and bears the writhing orgy of need underneath." Things like that. I find that really refreshing. Oh, there you go. But there's one just over down here where it goes, "At such times we are certainly not our best, but we are undeniably at our most human, utterly vulnerable, naked, and laid open, a mess."
So is this, he's referring to heartbreak?
Yeah, in this case, he's referring to heartbreak. But what I take away from this is that, and I've experienced this as well, often a kind of a big event or a kind of sad event or some sort of strange thing that shakes up my routine opens me up to a certain humility and a certain like tranquility and a kind of openness that I've just kind of closed myself off from. I'm more of a kind of a dulled functioning thing day to day. Then these things happen, I'm like, oh, I feel like I've just done 7 hours of yoga and I may be sad and somber, but I feel so acutely aware.
Yeah, you feel aware, you feel alert. It's almost like I guess it's almost like the whole, being like conforming to the system, conforming to society, and then something, an acute event sort of shakes it up, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's like seeing something with fresh new eyes.
Yeah. Like I've actually often, I think I remember talking to you about this. I remember.
You had an idea.
I had an idea about doing a project where you shake up people's reality somehow, because that would shift your sense of, shift your reference points. If that makes any sense at all, except in the weird abstract crevices of my mind. If you shake up your day to day, you might allow creativity to flow more freely. You may be able to be more creative. So I think we talked about.
Yeah, we did. I mean,
ago.
And I've sent you a book that we might potentially read. The one on sort of like education of
kids. That was really interesting.
So, and one of the things that I was at a talk and they said was supposedly, at age like 5, 95% of kids test as within the genius range, for, like within say like
really
like creativity and that kind of stuff. And then by like age, I think it's 18 to 21. I'll need to double check the stats, but it's like something stark like 5%.
Wow.
And it's just like, that's why I'm so keen to read this next book, because it is literally like, to a certain extent, school, the system, the world, it beats the creativity and it beats, a lot of good things out of kids so that we have, we have a more uniform set of people.
Yeah.
But who does that really benefit in the end if we've got, like...
I mean, I think it was always a well-intentionally designed system, I think. The current education system, it was never, it was well-intentioned, but I think there are definitely flaws in it. And I mean, there are all these different schools, like Montessori, and Freinet, I think it's called. There's another French one, where it's like kindergarten style learning. You learn through team building, you learn through play. But I think an idea that I had fairly recently with Connor was, like, do you think you've lost some of your playfulness?
I think to a certain extent, yeah, definitely.
And I personally think playfulness is probably one of the biggest joys in life.
But this was actually one of the workshops at the Inclusive Cities.
Okay.
Sort of like event that day that I went to, and it was this lady who's an artist, and basically I think I told you about her. So I've forgotten her name. My apologies. But she was always really interested in art, and then she wanted to go to art school, and basically her parents said to her, no, go and get an actual proper degree, and don't waste your time doing art. So she went and did like a physics degree. I think even maybe she might have done a PhD.
Okay.
And then she was just like, actually, like, I'm now going to pursue my dream of being an artist. And so she pursued that. And at one point during her art sort of practice, she realized, or somebody said to her, somebody found out that she had these physics degrees, and they were like, why aren't you trying to pull in this work or your physics knowledge into the art that you do? And she was just like, she said, my reaction was, which is something like a kid says, is like, am I allowed to do that? Which is interesting, because it's like all of us are unique in the sense that we have different experiences and we have different skills, and we really should be looking to pull as many of them together where we can. But yeah, in this workshop of about playfulness, we got to do lots of sketching. We got to make loads of made these like 3-dimensional bubbles from straws and what are those, like bendy
straws?
Yeah, no, not the bendy ones. They're like wire with the
it's like soft on the outside.
Yeah.
Fluffy on the outside.
Yeah. But yeah, she was basically saying the exact same thing. We need playfulness, and it's kind of squeezed out of us.
Yeah, it is squeezed out of us, and I think it's also, for me, I used to be a really cheeky, like, yeah, it's like, well, not like that. I'd make really not like, I do it with you sometimes. I just say random voices and shout stupid things at you because it just makes me happy. Just say the same annoying thing just to slightly annoy you. But like, I've definitely lost a lot of that. I used to crack myself up just by annoying Charlie, just by saying like little tiny things. But I've kind of lost touch with that. And I think it is because, I'm kind of unable to let it out as easily. But I was thinking though, if you were to do a comprehensive workshop on playfulness, I think there is a big, almost block to it. And I think this is probably one of the reasons why playfulness does tend to kind of reduce. It's like this. If you just let kids play in a playground, they'll just play and have fun. But if you let, say, 18-year-olds play in a playground, there's one major component that is included there that isn't in the kids one, which changes everything, which is sexuality. Because I think it'd be so hard to separate that from just pure playfulness. Would you agree?
I get what you mean. But
it distorts it, and it just changes what it is, because we've added an extra variable into the system, and you can't ignore that. you know, and things are going to start to get complicated as soon as you bring that in, especially if we have notions that, you know, say in a business setting. In a business setting, you kind of want to avoid sex, and I think that's probably a valid thing to be doing. But I think if you are going to try and pursue playfulness, that is something that you can't really ignore, I think.
So, but then it's like, you know, I mean, to a certain extent, even as a kid, like, there are always boundaries that you have to exist in, even with your playfulness. Like, you have a curfew when you have to go to sleep. Like, maybe if you live in a certain area, your mum will tell you, like, there's a boundary. Like, you know, you can only play in that park and that park. You can't go to the really far one. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe, like you said, in a working environment, there need to be those kind of sort of barriers.
Like,
or
limits.
boundaries, But then I don't know, maybe the problem isn't actually I don't know. You're probably not going to agree with this, but I was going to say that it's the whole, like, can guys and girls just be friends and be playful, and they're not to be sort of any like sexuality be something there. And to be honest, I don't really know the answer, because it's like, maybe it is something to do with, like, is it something to do with society, in the sense that, you know, from, like, well, at least in my opinion, you know, there is this like over sexualization of almost everything in our lives, because sex sells. But then at the same time, it's in our, you know, biology. Exactly. We are,
especially as men, I think, more so. I think anyway.
or even, you know, you've probably seen it when you were, like when you were in school, you know, if there's a mixed group, you know, you're at a park or whatever, and all of a sudden there are lots of guys trying to be the alpha male, and what are they doing? They're trying to show off to one of the girls, basically. So your face, you're like, that was me. I was that guy. I was the alpha, just saying, Mo. I know you were a beta, but, you know.
I attempted to be, at least. But I don't know. I think it's possible for men and women to be friends, I think. But, yeah, that's what I have to say to that. Yeah, I do think playfulness is something that's worth aspiring to. And we should be trying to get back there, or trying to stop the loss of it over time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Kali dokali.
There's an idea I want to talk to you about. So in the same one, there's a segment that goes, "The truth is, people are ravenous for sex, sociopaths for loves. I sometimes like to daydream that if we were all somehow simultaneously outed as lechers and perverts and sentimental slobs, it might be, after the initial shock of disillusionment, liberating. It might be a relief to quit maintaining this rigid pose of normalcy and own up to the outlaws and monsters we are." So I think, this actually relates to an idea that I've been having recently, which is, I think that if we were to all get chips in our brain,
Black Mirror,
and we could hear all of our thoughts as soon as they're, like, live, real time, somehow we made that work. I think, well, firstly, every time I bring this up in conversation, people normally, like, they, like, physically lean back from me, like, they are so repulsed by this idea normally, and they reject this so wholeheartedly. But I honestly think it's possible, obviously I have no fucking idea, but it's possible that this solves many, many, many more problems than it does create, in my opinion. And it relates very much to this, because he says, what he's saying is here, it might be after the initial shock. I think there's going to be a period where, you know, we had this shock and it's like, he's thinking this, she's thinking that, oh, that she just heard me think this, therefore it's shame on me. But I think what's much more likely to happen is, we will realize everybody's having these thoughts.
Okay.
They're totally normal, and we then learn to manage them. And what it probably would do is, I think it's possible that it could eradicate, or if not reduce, insecurity, a lot of insecurity. Because everybody's having these thoughts, and everyone knows it's all fucking bullshit. But by doing this, you open yourself up, everyone's on a level playing field.
Okay, I'm wondering, how does it work? Like, I'm just...
Don't ask me technically.
No, not like that, but like, okay, so if I'm walking down the street, right?
I don't know, because then you have like 7,000 voices in your head.
And then I see you wearing a nice hat, and I'm like, oh, that guy's hat is sick.
Yeah.
Is that sent like to you, like direct message, like DM, or DT, direct thought?
Yeah.
Or is it like, I don't know, like a tweet or something, and like gets broadcast, like a tweeted thought, like...
No, I'm thinking it's more like a...
You know, maybe you could even capture, you like take a picture of that image, and then you just like send it out, but...
I'm not too sure.
Okay.
I think it doesn't really matter. The point is, like, you are experiencing, or you have easy access. It's not like you have to sit down and read. You have like easy access. So almost you have a collective brain.
Okay. No, it is interesting, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just an extreme example of what he's saying here.
Yeah.
He's saying, if we all just, stop pretending that we're normal, we would all show our weirdness and our fucked upness and our desires and our dislikes, and at first it's going to be kind of hard, but afterwards it's going to be very liberating.
Do you think it's actually this desire of generally people to be accepted and to fit in, like what you said, we're pretending, like, a lot of people pretending they're not normal, trying to fit into what society says is normal. Does that actually create some of the wider problems, do you think? Like, I don't know, like there are a lot of messed up people. Is it the fact that they were trying to, like, not giving what they do an excuse, but is it that they're trying to fit in, they're trying to do this, and they just can't, and society isn't accepting them, and then they eventually lash out?
Yeah, I mean, I think
in one way or another.
If you look at, I haven't done a lot of research on this, but from my basic little bit of understanding, a lot of the school shooters in America are these kids who didn't really fit in. They're bullied a lot, and they're rejected from this, rough high school social hierarchy. And then I think it's very possible that there is some sort of mechanism of it builds up, and then you as a person, or your personality or your mental structures, they sour and floor over time. They sour over time, and they kind of ferment into something quite bad.
But it's almost like it takes a very specific cocktail, like a very specific mix of different things. Like it's the, being rejected and being an outsider, sort of, but also there are some people who like, and maybe those are the people that accept that they're different. There are people who understand that they aren't within certain normal social groups, and they'll just, they're never trying to fit in, and it's almost like they escape to a certain extent the bullying and because they're just like I'm over it. But there are these people, I think, not only are they rejected and outcast and shunned, but it's they have a very big desire to be part of that group. I don't know if that's actually a human nature thing. Is it like tribe and belonging? Do we all want to belong, or is it actually some people understand, if I don't fit into this group's mentality, then I'm not going to try and push to be in that group? Like the Native Americans, they didn't want to stay with the Americans, did they?
Well,
so
I think it's about, if you have nothing, I guess if you have nothing, then it's possible that you're not going to feel safe and you're not going to develop. If you have something, like if you have if you hate everyone in your school, say, but you have your mates from the other school, then you're kind of okay. Or alternatively, I think you're just an extremely strong-willed, aware person, and you're going to like wait it out until more opportunities come. But I think the vast majority of people, myself included, probably aren't so mentally strong, you know.
But then it's also, I think, apart from those two characteristics, I think it's also then you need to have this. It's like you don't fit in, you want to fit in, and you want to make people pay. You want to make people pay, and you want them to. You're like, you don't. At this point, you're like, I've given up on ever being accepted. Like, you've accepted that, but you don't want to just disappear into nothingness. You want to make some kind of a mark.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a bad one. You want to be like, you know, they'll regret the day they ever, you know, didn't listen to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, a bit of a side tangent.
Yeah, no, I mean, coming back to the point where, so that's in a more extreme situation. I guess what we were talking about is, how would this apply to more regular life? Are these lesser restrictions, you know, maybe feeling a little bit inhibited in your particular space, your workplace, your school, or whatever, does that have an effect on your personality? And I think that probably does have an effect on your playfulness, say. But I guess the key thing here is, does it affect your ability to express yourself? That might be a biggie, I think. What do you reckon?
Is this the thoughts? Or are you saying freeing ourselves?
Yeah, I'm saying, what is being hindered by being in an environment that just squeezes you a bit too tight? You know, you're not going to go and shoot up a school because most people are normal. But what are most people? Are most people experiencing some sort of strangling? That
Squeezing,
yeah. The
I
squeezing
think I think so. I mean, yeah, I do think so. And I think what it hinders is it's... I think it's like we said, people do want to fit in, but then they have these. Everyone has these little quirks, but there's that little uncertainty in our heads where we think, you know, I could say this, but actually people might think it's like, you know, weird, or people might freak out, or people might give me weird looks, or you know, I might offend loads of people, or whatever, right?
Or people don't want to face this part of the conversation. They
yeah.
rather ignore this.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I think it's different in certain societies, but in certain societies, like, people don't really want to talk finances or money.
Yeah.
Like, so...
I mean, you can't talk politics at work.
Yeah.
Not really, at least.
Not really, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Because, you know, all of a sudden you find out, like, the guy next to you is, like, a UKIP supporter, and you're just like, bro, I'm Muslim, like... We're chatting every day. No, I don't think we have any UKIP supporters at work.
Never know. You never know.
One thing I thought about was like thought police with your idea, because if these like brain thoughts are being sent out, then obviously, you know, you could police that potentially, because you know, you're sending out data or messages or whatever. Like, could it be? I haven't actually seen the Divergent series, but isn't that kind of like, if you have you seen them?
No.
So I think it's like, if you have like divergent thoughts, then like maybe you'd get flagged. Like, you know, if you have like, so like, this could eventually lead to this whole chip. If policing occurred, it could lead to like, you know, sort of a regime where you have to think a certain way. So it's like, at least when we were at least when we were restricted, we could just think the things that we wanted to think, and then we would have to say what is normal. But then, if this, you know, thought chips occur and then they're policed, and then, you know, then a regime is set on it, you could start saying anyone who has X amount of divergent thoughts, like, they're gonna get thrown in jail because and then beaten or reprogrammed. You could do that, can you? You could, like, if these chips in the brain, like, if there's communication both ways, you could suddenly start altering people's,
potentially.
you know,
I mean,
reduce the number of divergent thoughts that, I don't know,
I have a few thoughts here, though. I think, firstly, I mean, if you wanted to manipulate it, you can, or you probably could. However, I think there are certain benefits that come from it. I think you wouldn't be able to lie. And I think that would be extremely useful politically. If you have your prospective president or prime minister on their campaign saying stuff, you can hear what they really think. You can, and then you can get a better understanding of what you're actually voting for, what the views are. Okay, it's complicated, and this is very sci-fi.
I know. It's just interesting to see how far we can go with it, because then I think that what if there's then like scales to this, you know? So like, you know, somebody who is in government, like the prime minister, could get a higher level chip where he's allowed to lie, you know, and people wouldn't know, or like, you know.
Well, maybe it's a blockchain sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like you can't. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I was just...
But there is one thing that you said that when you were saying stuff earlier. One thing that could potentially happen, which might actually be quite dangerous or positive, I guess it's neutral, I think. But you might start to get like a Mexican wave sort of thing happening, or like one source idea might go viral.
Oh, like but not even it wouldn't be a viral video or a viral.
It'd be a viral thought.
Yeah.
So it'd be like mob mentality sort of thing, but it could be positive. So if somebody has a seed idea, then they all think it in the area, or maybe a particular group, then that could spread, and then it could get like a massive wave, like a big pulse of
that'd be really cool,
like an idea pulse.
Yeah, that'd be
but then we would then kind of just become neurons in a bigger network.
Yeah, it's true.
That's kind of mad.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, he's invested in Neuralink. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, he is actually invested, isn't he?
Yeah, he invested like 8 figures or some ridiculous number.
Cash.
Like
Cash
mate,
money.
Cash. All right, Mo. Your turn to pick one from the pile.
My turn to pick one. There was which part?
So,
yeah, no, go.
There's one little bit. Maybe I don't ask you this. It's a bit too personal, maybe. It's a bit too tricky.
What is it?
It's about religion.
Go on, ask it.
Alright, so I just want to hear your opinion on this, really. So, he says a thing in the Tsar's Daughter, which is the one about Skelly. Page 43. It starts at the end of 42 and goes up to 43. The quote is, "This is one reason people need to believe in God, because we want someone to know us truly, all the way through, even the worst of us." And you being a religious person, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't put any notes or highlighted it, but I do remember reading this and thinking, yeah, I think that, yeah, it's very true. Like, yeah, I don't think there's, I mean, I don't, like, what, is there any particular part you want me to comment on?
As in, I think...
Did you just find it interesting that he said that and you kind of felt like it made sense?
I think he's saying in a slightly negative tone.
way.
Yeah, he's saying, oh, the only reason people believe in God is because they need to feel significant. I think that's kind of his point.
I don't know, but at the same time, it's quite an endearing sort of narrative. It's talking about Skelly and how, you know, even though Skelly was secretive and he never really, you know, wanted to be seen, when they made all these comments on like how they actually knew him, he did like that, because it's like sometimes I guess you just think that you're friends with somebody and they kind of know you, but then if they suddenly say something which is like, you know, really acutely aware of actually who you are, then all of a sudden you're like, I didn't know you knew me like that.
Yeah, true.
You know, and it is quite like, oh wow, like
it's a very nice thing.
It's
like, yeah, that's actually very true. You feel, what is actually, because you feel known, like, and accepted, but does knowing relate to acceptance? What is it?
I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on the way that they say it, really.
Yeah.
Because, whenever they did the stuff to Skelly, it was like they were never trying to like expose him. Like if it was an expose of him, where they like told everyone his deepest darkest secrets, then obviously he wouldn't like that. But it was more just the fact that they know, like it's like we know you chat like the most amount of just absolute garbage, but we're still here.
Yeah.
We still stick with you. Like all of those $40 that you said you would pay me back. I know I'm not getting them, but like we still hang out. So I get you. I know you.
Yeah.
And hence why he then says like maybe this is why people believe in God, because that is for religious people that's an even further step, because it's we believe that God knows you completely. Like
it's almost like you become wholly accepted. You are fundamentally down to the real core. You are accepted, and you're not, and there's no question as to whether you're doing wrong, or you're not right, or you're not good enough. So maybe it fulfills that kind of absolute base existential need to feel meaning. But I guess that's a lot. That's something that religious people often do. Not often. Sometimes tell me something along those lines.
Yeah.
Would you?
Well, I think it's like, it's like knowing that, like, I'm trying to think of how to say it. So it's, the thing he says is like, even the worst of us. And it's that idea that, you can mess up and God knows you're going to mess up, but he's not like going to just completely like, either stop, like he'll still know you, even if you continue doing bad and you continue, like he's not just then going to be like, oh, like I'm just going to stop, knowing everything about this person. No. So you're like, that even if there are things that you've hidden from your friends and from your family, God is keeping a track of all of these things, and I guess to a certain extent, it's not. I mean, it's not like acceptance of the fact that he's then saying, "Oh, you're gonna, I'm gonna forgive you" or whatever. But it's acceptance that it's not just you who knows. Yeah. It's that,
I think that the way I'm kind of registering it is, if you look at the flip side, and if you didn't have that, then at your root, at your core, if you like, of your personality, of who you are, whatever that means, there is kind of an uncertainty of, am I good enough? Or there is some sort of question mark that is left there for you as a person to decide yourself, or to point at and go, oh, it's not good enough, or it's whatever, it's not enough. Whereas if you believe in a divine entity far greater than yourself, to then justify all those question marks, it will give you a sense of contentment and peace. I guess it's kind of how I'm interpreting this particular situation.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which is, I mean, it's kind of what do I want to say? I don't know what I want to say. I'm going to leave it there. IMO. Your turn to pick.
Rightio.
One thing that he does talk a lot about in various chapters is how judgment of other people is rooted in one's own insecurity, and separation from yourself and other people is also the same thing, like the right and the left politically.
Oh yeah, he did. He did speak quite interestingly on that, and
Yeah.
like how, I mean, he sort of goes into the whole like right and left is sort of just like, divide and conquer.
Yeah.
So well, he doesn't say that, but as
Yeah.
in, like he doesn't like he agrees with some things and disagrees with others.
Yeah.
But,
There's one really, he points it out quite nicely, and this is something that was mentioned in Tribe as well, oddly enough. It's actually the exact same point. But I think he kind of, Tim Kreiders, here actually kind of elaborated with one little line I seem to remember. Let me dig this out. Let me dig this out, mate. One sec, mate. Let me find it. Where'd it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? It was the one about the Tea Party.
oh, I remember that.
Here we go. So, yeah, there's actually two things I want to talk about here, but let's talk about this one first. So, I'll read what he writes. We're, being the left, we are the red state's feckless, ineffectual, faggy, compassionate side that they like to think they've successfully quashed. Just as they, those angry, chanting, bandanaed rednecks, are our more credulous, aggressive selves, whom we're too inhibited to own up to. Thus, conservatives coin pejoratives for compassion, altruism, bleeding heart, do-gooder, while liberals get nervous and ironic in the presence of passionate patriotism and religious zeal, what we call flag waving and Bible thumping. We are one another's political shadows. So that's, I think up to that point, he is saying the same as Tribe, in the book Tribe by Junger. He's saying, we're basically just the same thing. It's just two sides of the same coin. You need both, or both exist, and we have both of them in us to some degree. But it's finding the balance, or at least the fundamental philosophies, It gets sour when you start saying, I don't know, whatever. But the next line, he goes, we may hate each other, but let's at least quit pretending we hate hating each other. We love hating each other.
Yeah, I know. I underline that as well.
Yeah.
Because it is like he definitely, that's where he kind of separated himself a bit more in terms of that narrative.
So he's saying we get a sick pleasure, and I think it's almost true. You get a sick pleasure, like looking at Trump supporters, like, these fucking dickheads,
But as in, it just wouldn't work. Like, imagine it wouldn't work without like an opposite, like an opposite number. Like a football game doesn't work if one team's just playing against a goal, right? Like,
yeah, it's
obviously different, but as in, you love, it's like without you're supporting your guy, your lady, whoever is in charge. You're like, I support them and everything that they stand
Politically,
for.
you mean?
Yeah, politically.
Yeah.
But you need the other guy and his supporters to throw sort of shade and your anger and all your frustration out.
I think if anything it's good, we should be having, there's almost a very useful mechanism. It's basically, it could be a constructive feedback loop. Like, do you know how AI works? Or how some AIs are built? They do, what's it called? I forget what it's called. It's called like competitiveness or something. So it's like, the AIs that have to learn to stand up, or have to learn to walk. They're set with challenges. They're set with harder and harder challenges. I think this is going down the wrong road here. But my point is, the left could be saying the left's ideas, whereas the right says the right's ideas, and then the ideas ideally would clash in the middle, and the best solution would come out of the bottom.
But that's not what happened.
That's not what happened. But it could be a very healthy, naturally self-regulating system. The left goes, oh, this is great. And the right goes, well, but you haven't thought about this. And the left goes, yeah, you're kind of right there. And then it
Yeah.
perpetuates.
But I mean, I was at a public consultation yesterday, and what I've learned is some people just come with they'll come with a pre-existing idea in their head,
Yeah.
and no matter what you say, even if what you're saying is actually, makes sense, is logical, can be backed up with, facts, statistics, whatever, right? At the end of the day, they will, some of these people will just want to stick to that. They what they know. They don't want to listen to anything you say. They don't want to. They don't even listen. They just, you say something and just blah 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 blah, a rebuttal that, essentially they've got pre-prepared. So it's difficult. How do you, that is a really big question. How do you get people from different sides to engage with each other in a really meaningful way? Because we need to stop thinking about it as a left and a right and we're one country, we're one people. Let's we've got loads of issues, and instead of wasting time talking about left and right and this and that, why don't we actually try and come together and get the best ideas out? But
how are you gonna fix all this?
What?
Chips in the brain.
Chips in the brain.
Chips in the brain. Mate, because then you'll be having a debate and you understand each other's intentions and motives. Because I might be very well intentioned, but my point doesn't come out quite right, and you misinterpret my words, and then there's confusion. Obviously, in reality, there's going to be people with ulterior motives. They've got I want to make more money, so I'm going to be very pro-infrastructure because I own an infrastructure company. You know what I mean? There will be these things that you can't avoid. But I think one interesting thing would be to start to develop a culture where it becomes very much okay and accepted to accept that you're wrong.
True.
Because I was really bad at that. And I'd be in an argument with somebody, or I'd be having a conversation, and they would make some valid points, but I would just dig my heels in and just argue my point more. Later, and I would come up with kind of weird angles.
Explanations as to why you were right.
Exactly, yeah. But then later down the line, I think, actually, wait a sec, I think I was wrong, But I'm sorry, I got distracted by my phone. But it'd be very good if you could, in the moment, analyze and be like, oh shit, yeah, there's a flaw in my thinking there. Okay, let's try and fix that. Okay, now let's carry on. But often that never happens. And I'm trying to incorporate that into my life.
We need feedback loops in our own brains. We have them. We just reject them.
We just have to be, I don't know. But then again, this comes back to the sort of tribal allegiance to particular ideas. And this is actually a point that I want to talk about. I did it on the previous page. I wrote a little note. But basically, we kind of subscribe to a system that is binary, or we kind of like to say things are left or right, black or white or whatever, But me, I'm mixed. So I'm not. But I think it probably comes down all the way back from the ancient Greek philosophers, and the way that they instilled logic has percolated all the way down, so it's so ingrained. Perhaps we see things as, right or wrong, A or B, cause and effect, Whereas what we really need to understand is that these situations are so damn complicated, and it's very likely that you're part left and part right, if that is even a thing.
Yeah.
But I guess the issue is, what's the issue? Is binary logic. Binary flaw it's never binary, I think. It's so rarely binary. What situations are binary? It's normally such a complex mishmash of things, so complex that we can't even understand it, yet we still go, I'm on the right, I'm on the left, I'm Arsenal, I'm Tottenham, or whatever. We set ourselves and place ourselves tribally in a camp based on, arguably, this binariness, this kind of separation. Me against you, you against me, us against them. So perhaps, I mean, if that is to some extent true, that in itself is a complicated mush of ideas. So then to actually apply that to life is going to take, I don't know,
A lot of time.
A lot of time.
There was one point he made on. So this is what we're talking about, actually. Funny that it's just come up. Okay, so maintaining any sort of dogmatic ideology necessarily involves some exhausting intellectual dishonesty.
Yeah.
Forcibly ignoring dissonant information, dismissing counter arguments, literally, constantly reassuring yourself that you're in the right.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Like, uncertainty is, we have to realize that uncertainty exists in every single thing. And seeing what we've repressed in ourselves unapologetically embodied in someone else infuriates us.
Yeah.
So, it's exactly like he says, the left and the right. It's like, maybe someone on the right wants to be liberal and they've repressed that in themselves, and now seeing somebody else who's like a liberal and it just, fires them up. You see people at political rallies and you're like, I wish you were this passionate in your daily life. Like, I wish you took that in, to your day job.
Yeah.
Or doing what you're leaving your day job and doing what you're passionate about, because some of these people, they're so fired up, and it's crazy. You're just like, where does that come from? You're a couch, a desk jockey the most of the week, and then all of a sudden you got
Twitter is on fire, man.
Twitter feed be flaming. And the other one this was more of just a side note. So he's talking about George Bush. So he goes, for example, he's talking about the Bush administration and what it did in terms of money funded into humanitarian aid and development in Africa and to combat AIDS. And then he goes, the name George Bush still drops out of my friends' mouths like something that wasn't supposed to be in their food, but it's evidently spoken with respect in places like Sudan. And I was just like, what? Like, nobody likes George Bush. I'm sorry, Tim. If you hear this, I don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, nobody likes George Bush. Not even Sudan.
Yeah. Have you heard apparently George Bush, when he was younger, he won some of the biggest scholarships. Apparently he's really smart.
No. Senior, not junior.
Junior.
No way. I don't believe that. Nah.
Apparently there's video online. You can go watch him as a young politician speaking super eloquently and quickly and about interesting topics, about complex topics. He's rattling off in a really eloquent, powerful,
Did he have a stroke?
Well, I mean, a lot of older people, as they get older, they start to slow down. Perhaps the presidential role or politics could wear you down so much that you just become, I don't know, but
I'm tempted to say that he did it on purpose. He was just like, possible. I'm not going to win as this intellectual guy. I've got to dumb it down.
It's possible, but then again, as Tim Kreiders comments, it's exhausting to have this constant falseness, I don't know. This is all speculation. It's all speculation. Though he does, this might be a nice segue into another point though. Being
lazy
manifesto. And all this actually links to another point as well, but let's talk about this first. So Lazy Manifesto, basically in this chapter / essay, he talks about how people are always so busy. People are so busy doing stuff,
right?
But one really good thing is that it's a perfect excuse to get out of things. If you don't want to go and see, Mo's basketball game, I'm really busy. Really busy at work. Sorry, Mo.
I mean, he pretty much sums it up as this. He says, people who are talking about, I'm busy, I'm crazy busy. This frantic, self-congratulatory busyness is a distinctively upscale affliction. Notice it isn't generally people pulling back-to-back shifts in the ICU, taking care of their senescent parents, or holding down 3 minimum wage jobs they have to commute to by bus, who need to tell you how busy they are. what these people are is not busy, but tired, exhausted, dead on their feet. Like, none of these people are going around, oh, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I'm just so busy.
Yeah.
They're just freaking like, they're just like, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm getting on with it.
Yeah.
But then it sort of diverges away from that and more to a whole why we are keeping so busy and what, like, you know, sometimes we're doing it just to stop ourselves from just pausing and thinking. And
Yeah, I think that is a point. That he does say that, but I think my key takeaway from this, well, okay, there's two things. One, there's quite a nice quote. So he's talking to his friend, this lady who lives in New York, and she's going through she's trying to date, and she comments about everybody in New York. She says, everybody's too busy and thinks they can do better. I find that really interesting. Personally, just because I kind of feel the same way in my life. It's like, what if? It's like, come on, more. Not just in relationships, but just in everything, you know, more from life.
Yeah.
And I kind of, it's like, my philosophy is kind of based in this kind of struggle, you know, push, you know. But right at the end, he kind of talks about history is full of stories of inspirations that came in idle moments and dreams. It also makes you wonder whether loafers, gold brickers, and no accounts are responsible for more of the world's great ideas. So he's saying, in idle moments, good ideas come. He says that as one thing. But the next thing he says, later down the line, he says, my role in life is to be a bad influence. The kid standing outside the classroom window, making faces at you at your desk, urging you just this once to make some excuse and get out of there, come outside and play. Which I think is also hugely important. It's like, why are you so busy? You're busy for what? Is it to cement a good career for yourself? It's like that parable, you know, like, why do you work so hard? Or why do you want money? It's like, okay, this is how it goes. The fisherman, he's sitting there playing guitar with his friends in the evening. Then he starts to work, he starts to hustle, he buys a house, he gets this and he gets this. Finally he makes it. He reaches the end. He's sacrificed his life, and then somebody asks him, so what do you want to do now? Oh, I want to play music and sit on the beach with my friends. You know, so it's like, what is all this money for? I guess it's kind of a work-life balance thing. But I think what his point is here is that life is greater than work. If we can simplify it, if we're going to do this binary thing where we separate the two, you know. But
well, I mean, the other thing that this was just on the page before is that he says, I can't help but wonder whether all this histrionic exhaustion isn't a way of covering up the fact that most of what we do doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, you've kind of,
that's true.
You know, often speak about how life is meaningless.
Yeah.
And if we just allow ourselves to sort of sit and think about that and ponder that, then all of a sudden you're just like, you could just be like, nothing matters. I'm just gonna quit my job. I'm gonna, you know.
Mate, that happened a lot to me. Like during uni time, I'd be fine because I'd be so busy, but then I'd hit like a weird patch during the summer holidays when I realised, life is really depressing. But I guess for me it's more of a realisation something isn't right. There are things that I need to be tuning and tweaking or changing. But I think it's a very valid point. This busyness is very much, it can be a big distraction for deeper thoughts, if that's the right word, the right way of thinking. What's the time? Oh shit, it's 8. We've been doing this for over an hour now, I think.
Yes.
Yes. Shall we do one more?
Yeah.
One more point from the book and then we sum this one up.
Yeah.
What are you thinking then? Do you have like one big takeaway from this book? Or is there one chapter that you just for some reason really resonated with or really liked, but maybe you didn't fully understand why? Or maybe you did?
I do feel like there was. I think like a lot of them have been the ones that we've spoken about. Like in terms of like, you know, we've spoken about the what's it, Lazier Manifesto and some of the other ones. I think those were some of the ones that I got, you know, sort of big takeaways
It does
from.
not justify you being slow, Mo. I'm sorry. Lazy and Manifesto does not justify you being slow and late, okay? No,
I'm busy, man. I'm busy. I'm just so busy these days. I felt like I liked the last chapter because it made him
Which
feel
one?
more like when he finds out he's got half sisters.
Yeah.
It kind of, you suddenly are like, oh, he doesn't seem like that bad a guy. I mean, I didn't think he was a bad guy.
Not a bad guy, yeah.
It made him more relatable, and like, you know, seeing him sort of like develop that sort of love
Yeah.
and that almost unconditional love.
Yeah.
Like,
And compassion that being a parent is meant to instill.
yeah. I mean, even just the stories about his uncle as well, like his kind of messed up uncle, and how like that was hidden from him for like a lot of his life, and
Oh,
he had
yeah.
no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Or no, it was his dad's uncle or something.
No, I think it was his brother, his dad's brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is very interesting, and I think is somewhat applicable to my life, but I'm not fully sure, is the very last one, averted vision.
Averted vision. Okay.
So that was the one where he says, let me just pull some quotes out of this. So he goes, "We mistakenly imagine what we want, happiness, which we tend to picture in vague, soft-focused terms, when what we really crave is the harder-edged quality of intensity." He says that. Then he also talks about, he basically says, if you try and do it, it won't happen. You have to forget about it. And just live, and then it'll naturally come. So he says, perhaps the reason we so often experience happiness only in hindsight, and that any deliberate campaign to achieve it is so misguided, is that it isn't an obtainable goal in itself, but only an after effect. It's a consequence of having lived the way that we're supposed to, by which I don't mean ethically correctly, but fully, consciously engage in the business of living. In this respect, it resembles averted vision, a phenomenon familiar to backyard astronomers, whereby, in order to pick out a very faint star, you have to let your gaze drift casually to the space just next to it. If you look directly at it, it vanishes.
I do remember. I thinking that was like, I really like the averted vision, like, and how he eventually brought that into,
Yeah.
because you know, name of the title of the chapter.
Yeah.
But
I guess. Sorry.
no, that's it.
I guess it kind of relates to. I mean, I think I've experienced that in my life. If I'm really trying to get into the conversation or whatever I'm doing, it often isn't as good as if I'm just in a flow state. If I'm just in it and just flowing and not really thinking about it.
But I do find it interesting that about how he says, you know, the reason we so often experience happiness only in hindsight. That's like, I don't know, it's almost like,
I personally don't think that's true.
yeah,
But
neither do I, but to a certain extent, I think it can be. Like, you know, you have an experience, but then actually it's after it that once you've had it and once you can sort of idle on it for a bit, that you're like, oh wow, that was a really amazing experience. Like,
Yeah.
at the time, it was just happening, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, at the time it was kind of shit, but you look back and go, oh yeah, I was doing this and this and this, and it's so
yeah,
great.
I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. Or even if it's just like you don't remember it right. You know?
Yeah, he does. That's in his very first chapter.
Yeah.
The whole, you know, the book basically starts with him saying, what is it? I had a near-death experience, where I got stabbed in the neck, and for the next year, I can't say that my life wasn't bad,
Yeah.
or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I wasn't unhappy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But cheer. All right.
Oh, this is Sister World actually has a little gem that links back to the Soul Toupee, and it's kind of about your own perception. And so it's basically, he says they're having a conversation about personalities, and then he says this, and I just found it funny. Life is, in this respect, like that game in which you're assigned an identity scrawled on a piece of paper that everyone else can see but you can't. And you have to try to deduce from other people's hints and snickers who you are.
Yeah, that's.
And it's just like, that is true.
Yeah.
Like and in this case, the piece of paper is, like you said, it's defined by all of your life experiences.
Yeah. I think that kind of thing is probably especially true in places like high school.
Yeah, I was going to make that point earlier, actually. It's like, why is high school why is it like that? Like, why is it so...
Also, why are we saying high school? We really should say secondary school.
Secondary school.
so Netflix influenced. Sorry,
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
But like, why is it, why is it so vicious and like cutthroat? I don't think that it's as bad here as in the States.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way I could know this, but from Netflix and
from
and
Netflix
TV
and gun shootings, but then again, that could be tons of factors contributing. But either way, why is it so cutthroat?
Just like it like you realize at some point you're like, kids went from being really nice to all of a sudden really mean without like...
Kids are nice and mean though, I think. Little kids can be super mean and super nice.
But sometimes when they're mean, when they're really young, is they're just being honest. They're just saying something how they see it.
Maybe.
And it sometimes can be really like very like aware, like more aware than you think, because you're just like, whoa, like, they just said something that was really observant.
Yeah. I think people are mean probably because we are mean in nature. Do you reckon? I think it's not unnatural to be mean and to be harsh.
I think it's actually more to do with how it's about hierarchy. I think, like, I feel like the more even a school is in terms of not having a hierarchy within this, like, social structures within the years and the whole school, the less you'll find this kind of behavior like bullying and stuff like that. Because think about it, in America you've got like very clear distinctions between groups of people. Like, like in school we didn't have freaking cheerleaders, did we? But like that is a way of creating an elite set of girls. Yeah. And then here we had people who played for a team, but it wasn't like a few thousand people would turn up to watch them, right? So all of a sudden they're now an elite as well. Yeah. So you've created two elites, and then you then got like everything that comes with that, whether that's the people who are in marching band who
a less elite.
And then you've got like people who are then because we're basically I think we're anti-intellectualism. You've got the nerds are like somewhere down in the but I don't know.
But do you think that's not reflected in real life? Like, look at the aristocracy and how that formed, and then look at
tribes. They're not about hierarchies.
But I think tribes would have wars with other tribes, no?
Yeah.
And
so you're saying this bullying is like a war in tribes, or these different groups are tribes?
Okay, well, why would somebody choose to further perpetuate, say, secondary school or high school culture, like clique culture, what benefit does it gain them? One, I think it's easier to be mean than it is to be nice. Because being nice, you have to show your own insecurities and your flaws. You have to be honest and vulnerable. Whereas I can just be like, Psh, fuck you, you know. I'm the whatever.
captain of the...
Yeah, exactly. Like, you little bitch, fuck off, you know. That's much easier than like saying, oh, I'm also a flawed human being. You know, let's try and build a bridge, which might be really uncomfortable. And people are fucking bad at having hard conversations. They just are, man.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. So the one is, it's a kind of fear in self, sort of, it's a vulnerability and self-acceptance thing, I think. Secondly, if you're in a position of power, you probably want to perpetuate that. Maybe. Some people might want to do that. If you're a hot cheerleader girl who's really popular and gets, you know, all the whatever, then it works in your favor to carry on that system.
Yeah.
So it's social inertia. It's like the people in power aren't relinquishing the power.
Yeah.
I guess it's something along those lines. But then surely that's very much reflected in adult life, normal post-school life.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Or in a much harsher extent. I don't know. Or a much more I don't know, mate. We're trying to summarize the world into, you know.
I didn't expect. He does go quite deep in areas, to be honest, which is good. The book. Yeah.
I enjoyed it because it was just quite a refreshing view on many things. He's also experienced quite a lot of things, and he says things. He tells stories well.
Definitely.
And it's always nice to hear fresh opinions. And to have them painted out, and I thought it was a very good book.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
But yeah.
Okay.
Done deal.
Born a Crime next month.
Born a Crime next week.
Next week.
It's next week.
Yeah.
Page you on?
I think I'm on page like 60.
16.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got 220 pages in a week.
Jeez. Yeah, that's fine. What are you on? 120.
No, mate, come on. Let me see. Hang on. I think I'm on. There's no fucking page numbers here. I'm on 180.
Not bad, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well
then, see you next week.
Trevor
Perhaps.
Noah, Born a Crime.
Mm-hmm. It's basically a lot of stories about his childhood and apartheid, South Africa, told in quite a funny way, talking about racism, culture.
Tune in next week to hear more.
See you next week.
We've been MOPO on the beach.
Episode 3.
See
you
ya.
later.